Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Wildrift Champion Guide. Today, we'll be diving into the world of Aatrox, the Darkened Blade. Let's begin. Aatrox is a juggernaut who excels in sustaining through fights and wreaking havoc in team battles with his high damage abilities and healing. His kit makes him a monstrous presence in the top lane, where he can dominate trades and thrive in extended skirmishes. Let's break down what makes Aatrox such a devastating force on the Rift. Aatrox's abilities. Passive, Deathbringer stance. Aatrox's next basic attack periodically deals bonus physical damage based on the target's maximum health and heals him for a percentage of the damage dealt. This makes him excellent at both trading in lane and staying sustained throughout fights. Timing your passive between abilities is key to maximizing your impact in duels and skirmishes. First ability, the Darkened Blade. Aatrox swings his great sword up to 3 times in a targeted area, with each swing dealing damage in a specific arc. The sweet spot, at the edge of each swing, deals bonus damage and applies a knock-up. This is Aatrox's core ability for both wave clear and damage, rewarding precision and positioning. Mastering the sweet spots is essential for maximizing his potential in trades and team fights. Second ability, Infernal Chains. Aatrox hurls chains in a targeted direction, damaging the first enemy hit and slowing them. If the target is a champion or large monster, they are briefly slowed and pulled back to the center if they don't escape the chain's range. This is a powerful tool for engaging and setting up combos, as well as locking down high-priority targets in skirmishes. Third ability, Umbral Dash. Aatrox dashes in a targeted direction. Additionally, this ability grants passive lifesteal when dealing damage to enemy champions, making it a vital tool for sustain in prolonged fights. Use Umbral Dash for repositioning, dodging key abilities, and chaining combos with the Darkened Blade. Ultimate World Ender. Aatrox unleashes his true form, becoming a monstrous Darkin with increased movement speed, attack damage, and enhanced healing. This ability is a game-changer in both duels and team fights, turning Aatrox into a near-unstoppable force. Use it to initiate fights, dive backlines, or sustain through intense battles. Ability leveling priority. I recommend upgrading and maxing your first ability, followed by your third ability, and finally your second ability. Items for Aatrox. Core items for Aatrox include Black Cleaver, Death's Dance, Sterac's Gauge, Yomu's Ghostblade, and Spirit Visage. Alternative options include Sundered Sky, Eclipse, Thornmail, Maw of Malmortius, or Guardian Angel. For boots, go with Plated Steel Caps or Mercury's Treads depending on the enemy team composition. Pair them with Stasis, Quicksilver, Protobelt, or Glorious Enchant depending on what the situation calls for. Runes for Aatrox. For your Keystone, Conqueror is perfect for Aatrox, granting him bonus damage and sustain during extended fights. For minor runes, I recommend the Precision Tree. Running runes such as Triumph, Coup de Grace, and Legend, Bloodline or Legend, Tenacity. For secondary runes, Second Wind, Overgrowth, Perseverance, and Bone Plating complement Aatrox well in the laning phase. For spells, I recommend using Ignite to secure kills. Early game, lane dominance and trading. Aatrox is a lane bully who excels at extended trades and controlling the wave. To maximize his effectiveness, focus on proper ability usage and trading windows. Use the Darkened Blade for wave clear and poke. Each of the 3 casts of the Darkened Blade has a sweet spot that deals bonus damage and knocks enemies up. Position carefully to hit the sweet spot consistently. This is especially effective for zoning opponents or punishing them when they go for last hits. Deathbringer stance management. Aatrox's passive deals bonus damage based on max health and heals him. Time your auto attacks between abilities to maximize sustain and damage during trades. Infernal Chains for engagement. Use Infernal Chains to lock down opponents who overextend. Follow up with the Darkened Blade to punish their inability to escape, and aim for the sweet spot on your Q. If you land the chains on an enemy near the edge of its range, you'll pull them back, ensuring follow-up damage. Know your limits. Aatrox is strong in trades but can struggle against ranged champions or heavy burst early on. Play cautiously against champions that can deal high amounts of burst damage early on, and only trade when you have your abilities off cooldown. Mid-game, roaming, teamfighting and split pushing. Aatrox's strength in mid-game skirmishes and teamfights comes from his sustain, AoE damage and crowd control. Roaming and ganking. Use your mobility and crowd control to impact other lanes. Roam mid after pushing your wave and using infernal chains to lock down squishy enemies for your teammates to follow up. Coordinate with your jungler to invade or secure neutral objectives like the Rift Herald. Aatrox's sustain and AoE damage make him excellent for skirmishes in these scenarios. Positioning and target priority. Stay in the middle of fights where you can maximize the healing from your abilities and ultimate. Avoid overcommitting without follow-up from your team. Aim for squishy backline targets like ADCs or mages. Use infernal chains to lock them down and ensure they can't escape. Split pushing. If your team doesn't need you for fights, consider split pushing in a side lane. Aatrox's sustain makes him an excellent solo duelist. Push waves quickly with the darkened blade and pressure turrets. Always keep an eye on the minimap and maintain vision to avoid getting collapsed on. Late game, decision-making and role transition. While Aatrox remains strong in teamfights during the late game, his effectiveness as a pure damage dealer diminishes slightly. Transition your role to provide more utility and focus on timing your abilities effectively. Teamfight positioning. Stay near your carries or front line with your team. Use the Darkened Blade for zone control and peel if necessary. Your ultimate World Ender should be used when diving into the enemy backline or soaking up damage for your team. Its healing and damage amplification make you difficult to kill, allowing you to sustain through extended fights. Avoid diving too deep into the enemy team unless you have backup or are certain of securing a kill. Adaptability. Against poke-heavy teams, play more defensively, using your sustain and AoE damage to outlast them in fights. Against burst-heavy compositions, time your engage carefully and rely on your team for follow-up. And against tank-heavy compositions, focus on the backline to alleviate pressure from your carries and break up enemy formations. Key tips for Aatrox mastery. Maximize sweet spots. Landing the sweet spot onto the Darkened Blade significantly boosts your damage and CC. Practicing your spacing is essential for mastering Aatrox. Play around Deathbringer stance. Time your passive to align with key trades and team fights. The bonus damage and healing can turn the tide in your favor. Ultimate timing. Use the World Ender at the start of big fights to maximize its uptime. Be aggressive, but don't dive in alone unless your team can follow up. Map awareness. Aatrox's strength lies in his ability to sustain and deal AoE damage. Ensure you're aware of the enemy team's position to avoid being caught out. Good and bad matchups. Good matchups, Garen, Nasus, Jace, Sion and Malphite struggle against Aatrox's sustain and poke damage. Challenging matchups, Fiora, Riven, Darius, Set and Jax can outscale or outmaneuver Aatrox. Play cautiously and avoid extended trades against them. Aatrox is a high-skilled champion who rewards precise gameplay and mastery over his abilities. Learn to land your sweet spots, time your ultimate effectively, and adapt to your opponents to carry games. If you found this guide helpful or learned something new, give this video a like and subscribe to stay in the loop for future videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.